This is just a quick video that's in response to a complaint I received yesterday about the boards that I supplied for a Fluke 9010A pod. The buyer wasn't able to get it working, and it turned out it was something fairly straightforward. He contacted me and I gave some brief guidance, but I'm only selling bare boards. I can only give very limited technical support. It's really up to the buyer to do the legwork, to figure out where to get components from and then how to get the board to work. Now, his complaint really was that I didn't provide any support, technical support, which I never claimed to. As I said, I've got limited resources. I do this as a part-time hobby. It's not a business. I don't make a profit selling these. But I do provide some fairly decent documentation with any board that I design that is different from the original. So for example, the 6502 Fluke pod boards that I supply, I couldn't just blindly make copies of the originals because several of the parts that were used in the originals are no longer available, and it would have been fairly pointless doing that. So I redesigned both boards so that parts that are available could be used. Now, along the way, when you do this sort of thing, you invariably tend to encounter small issues. Either the design as you drew it up doesn't work quite as it should, or you make a mistake laying out the board. What happened here was there was an error in the original board layout, but it was documented. I do supply documents when I send boards out that I've designed, so it's not only a bill of materials for each of the boards, but it's also any bugs or errata for the board in question. Now in this case, this is one of the boards, and the issue here was that there's a track that needs cutting on the board before it's assembled. Now this document was supplied, but this fix wasn't done. So that is something to bear in mind if you do buy boards from our website or the eBay listings. It will be supplied with one of these, so please make sure you do read through it and carry out any of the amendments that are required. What tends to happen is there's a very small market for these boards. I sell very few of them, and also I have to order a minimum quantity. As I said, this is not a business, so I don't make a profit, and that generally means that if there's no serious problems with the board, i.e. just a couple of fixes, then I will sell them along with documents on what fixes are required. This is the prototype board that I made the first 6502 pod from. As you can see, there's a kind of a bodge wire here, and that's because of an issue I was trying to locate on the board, which turned out to be the fix that's required, that is documented in the information that's sent with the boards. If this isn't done, then the pod won't work, and it wasn't done in this case. But even so, the buyer made some comments that really didn't relate to what it is that I'm supplying. I supplied bare boards. He claimed that I was using him as a guinea pig to test the board designs. And just to clarify this, when you buy a board from me, I never send out boards that I haven't personally assembled. And with boards like this, I make 5 boards from the first batch. That's how I derive the errata information. The reason I make more than one is because if there's an issue with the board or the board quality, then making more than one will usually highlight that. So I don't use people as guinea pigs. I make sure the boards are fully tested before I start selling them. I usually put up a YouTube video showing the board being tested. If it's just a vintage reproduction board, then I don't provide bill of materials, I don't provide errata unless there's something specific that needs fixing. Generally I will make them identical to the original, but that's not the case when I have to do some redesign. But even boards that are made to a known design, such as the Mark 14, I don't just make one and then leave it at that. I need to make sure that the boards in general are good, and that builders aren't going to encounter any problems. So I'll make several of each batch. That way I can be sure that what I'm selling to you is what it should be. It's working, providing it's assembled right. I don't use people as guinea pigs. I don't send out untested boards. If you do encounter a problem when you're trying to build the board, then you can contact me by all means. I'll help if I can, but as I say, I have limited resources, so I can't provide a lot of tech support. I don't claim I'm going to do that when you buy a board off me. So have a look around, make sure you've completed all the fixes that are required for that particular board set. That should get it working. But you do have to do that yourselves. You have to find the information, you have to find the firmware. Now, having said that, I'm constantly upgrading the website, the JM Precision website, and adding new information to it. And part of that is I will shortly be adding this information to the website. You'll be able to download these documents direct from the website. You do need to make sure you download the right one for your particular board. What I tend to do is once the first batch of boards have been sold, if they have bugs, I will work those bugs out. So in other words, the errata sheets should get smaller and smaller with each release, and ultimately we should end up with no bugs on a board set at all. But that does take time because what I tend to sell has a very limited market, and so it does take time to sell up each batch of boards. Having said that, the boards are completely, totally usable. They just need to be assembled in the way that is indicated in the documents that I supply. So I hope that made sense. Just bear in mind that the idea behind producing these boards is to try and keep vintage equipment going, and anyone that buys these is part of that process. If you're interested in vintage electronics, then you are going to need to put in some legwork, and almost all of my buyers do that. They are quite willing to sort the problems out themselves, to report any issues they find with the boards. Martin Bell is a very good example of that. He's got his own YouTube channel. He's bought quite a few boards off me, so it might be worth having a quick look at his channel